News. Let's say hello to Marcus Carlson.
Hi there, François. We're going to start with Ukraine and its difficult financial seat. The formation of a new Ukrainian government has been delayed until Thursday, as you may have heard in the news segment. It comes as there are warnings that Ukraine needs to secure outside financial help quickly. Officials in Ukraine say they will need as much as $35 billion to survive this year and the next. The concern is that Ukraine may default on its debts without outside help. And for more on that, I spoke to Tatiana Orlova, an economist at RBS in London earlier. She says that Ukraine could run out of funds within weeks.
I think we are talking about weeks rather than months, because I'm afraid that the social tensions in the society could increase if the payments of wages are not being made. And we could see the Ukrainian population back in the streets if they do not receive wages in the next few weeks.
How difficult do you think it will be for Ukraine to obtain aid from the outside? What kind of terms will it have to agree to?
Obviously, at the moment, we do not know who is going to be in the next Ukrainian government. But any government which comes to power in Ukraine at this moment will face a very difficult task because the IMF will likely repeat some of its requirements, such as hikes in regulated gas tariffs for the population, fiscal reform. And these requirements will probably be very hard to implement in the conditions when the economy is already very weak.
There is concern that Russia could turn up the heat on Ukraine if it doesn't like what it sees across the border. What kind of pressure do you think that Russia can exert economically on Ukraine?
The most obvious channel of influence on Ukraine is the gas price. In the end of December, Russian Gazprom has agreed to cut the price of gas imports to Ukraine by 1/3 from the previous level of above $400 per cubic meter. However, this arrangement is going to be reviewed quarterly, and at the moment, Ukraine owes Russia about $1.6 billion for gas deliveries it received last year and in the beginning of this year.
That was Tatiana Orlova speaking to me there from London. Meanwhile, the recovery in the Eurozone is picking up, at least if you believe the European Commission, which came out with its latest forecast earlier. It forecasts overall growth of 1.2% this year, slightly higher than a previous forecast. The Eurozone's largest economy, Germany, is seen to be powering ahead with 1.8% growth forecast for this year. Its growth forecast is also seen to be higher than that of France and Italy, the Eurozone's second and third biggest economies, and also of that of Greece. But Greece is, though, forecast to grow for the first time in 6 years in 2014. Even though the Commission is more upbeat than before, we also need to say that it points out that the pickup is only modest, and it also warns against complacency.
Unemployment remains high in many member states, as we know, although we expect some improvement in the course of this year and next year.
Next up, the credibility of virtual currency Bitcoin is back in the spotlight. It comes as the website of the prominent Bitcoin exchange Mt. Gox went dark this Tuesday. Users are now being met with a message that all transactions are being frozen for the time being and that the situation is being monitored. Delano De Souza has more.
Click and then nothing. That was what users on Mt. Gox saw once they logged into one of Bitcoin's largest exchanges. This is another blow to the Tokyo-based exchange after it halted withdrawals indefinitely on the 7th of February, citing a cyber attack. In search of answers, one Bitcoin trader flew to Tokyo to find out where his money's gone.
I had 311 Bitcoins in there, which at the time of before this started was worth around $300,000. So it looks like that's disappeared.
It's reported that 750,000 Bitcoin were deposited with Mt. Gox. That's a value of around $365 million. This week, the Mt. Gox CEO resigned from the board of the Bitcoin Foundation, a trade group that promotes the adoption of the digital currency. In an interview last year, he admitted investing in Bitcoin was risky.
Bitcoin would quite qualify as a high-risk investment. If you buy Bitcoin, you should buy with keeping in mind that the value could be zero the day after. There's no guarantee. There's no nothing behind Bitcoin trying to keep the market value high.
In November, one Bitcoin was worth over $900. Its value today is around $450. The latest news from Mt. Gox demonstrates the challenges faced with the world's fastest growing currency in a market with no regulation.
Okay, let's take a look at the stock markets next. In the United States this hour, we're seeing a little bit of a mixed picture. It's pretty flat, though, we need to say that, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average up ever so slightly. One thing supporting shares over in the United States this session is better than expected earnings from some companies, including, well, I'm going to bring you that later, actually, because I haven't taken it down here on my notes. Let's talk you through the European close. Earlier, we saw the indices closing in negative territory. Mining stocks were among the losers amid fears that China's appetite for resources will come down. Weak outlooks from companies like French media conglomerate Vivendi and oil drilling firm Seadrill also hit sentiment. Let's talk you through a few other news that we're following for you, rather. Shares in Germany's BASF were under pressure on Tuesday. It came in even as the chemicals company posted better than expected fourth quarter results. Earnings between October and December came in above 1.4 billion euros. BASF also forecasts higher growth this year. This as BASF customers like car makers and consumer goods companies are growing. And the American bank JP Morgan Chase is speeding up a cost-cutting drive. As part of those efforts, it says it will reduce the number of employees by 5,000 to 260,000. The lender's consumer and community banking arm will take a harsh hit as customers are using the internet to bank more and more. JP Morgan is also scaling back its branch expansion plan. Okay, that is the business news for now. I'm going to be back in around about an hour and a half with more, and I'm going to throw it back to you, Francois, for now.
All right, many thanks for that, Marcus Carlson. Time now for sports. Let's say hello to Dan.